Welcome back to Hot Takes and Deep Dives. This is Jess, and I am here with our returning friend. He is the empath to the stars, the empath to the housewives. He's about to be the empath to the summer house kids. I'm here with your favorite, Jamie Stein. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Well, I mean, truthfully, we did just record 3 minutes and you didn't record your side, so I'm not great. But we'll try to recapture the magic that we had.
All right, you're exposing me.
Listen, truthfully, it was only 3 minutes of material. You made one funny joke that I'm going to have you repeat.
Yes.
But so we're not scripting this. There's going to be like one word that's scripted. That's it.
Fair enough. And now you've outed the This is like in Beverly Hills when they show behind the curtain the producers like Cooke and Garcelle.
Yeah, I mean, I'm breaking the fourth wall. So today, we're going to do a super deep dive on Summer House. And not only that, we've both watched the Real World Homecoming premiere. And of course, you're the perfect person to discuss that with, because we did an entire episode where you went through your career as you were an associate producer for 4 Real World seasons.
No, I think they called it associate editor. And then right. We were called on the actual job. We were called loggers. I was a night logger. There were day loggers and night loggers. Listen,
the point is you're more invested in this shit than even the biggest fans among us.
I was in the mix. And I'm of the age that really grew up with the Real World. I mean, I was 14 when the first season premiered. So it's speaking right to me in my age group.
I actually did in 1992, I was 10 when the Real World premiered. So New York was obviously not the first one that I watched live. I was doing the math last week. I do believe the first Real World season that I watched live as it aired was San Francisco, because of the hype around the Pedro and Puck. But between Pedro and Puck, there were more eyes and more press about it than ever.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about it. I literally remember first hearing about the Real World. Like, I remember being on a school bus and people talking about, like, there's this show on MTV and it's real life. And I don't know if the word documentary was used. And I remember hearing about it and registering that it was this really novel thing. And then I remember watching it on TV and being like, oh, this is that show that people were talking about. So it's crazy. It's crazy that it was 30 years ago. It's crazy that it was the first reality show. And I specifically remember, I think I started watching it at the tail end of the season. And I remember they did some sort of bridge between Real World New York and Real World LA, where it was like kind of somehow the last episode of the New York season where they had started hearing about who they were casting for LA. And then they kind of like fast forward flash to LA. And I remember this all airing for the first time, and just that kind of evolving awareness of like, oh, this show is growing and it's becoming something and it's new and it's novel. And it really was like of a time for sure.
I love that. Kind of like, are you aware that Summer House is technically a spinoff of Vanderpump Rules?
Which means it's technically a spinoff of The Housewives.
I mean, life.
I can't wait to see where this is going to go. Yeah, life. Mm-hmm. Well, tell me about life, Jess.
Life is a circle. As Madonna once said in the song, what the fuck is that song? She's a song off of Madam X, and she repeats over and over again, life is a circle.
Well, you know my dream Bravo project. Well, you don't, because I've never told you. But I'll tell you now, my dream, because I'm just waiting for I know they're announcing the whole like Housewives crossover journey trip, mm-hmm. But my dream is when it goes way beyond that, and we're going to get like all sorts of Bravo celebrities in the mix. And what I've always wanted to see, well, first what I wanted it to be was Vicky Gunvalson and Tom Sandoval on like a cross-country road trip in an RV together. And now that I'm a Summer House devotee, I want to throw Kyle Cooke into the mix. I want Vicky, Kyle, and Tom in an RV, and I want them for 2 weeks in an RV, like learning life lessons, teaching each other things, whooping it up. Chef's kiss. So anyways, I'm just saying that because I feel like it speaks to, like we're the Bravo universe is a reflection of our own little universe, and there's circles within circles and alternate timelines, and it's time. We got to start mixing them up, mixing them together, circles upon circles, linking the circles.
No, it's as Elton John once said, it's the circle of life, which is a much better quote than Madonna's.
All right. Well, here we are.
Here we are. Now, I know because we chat nearly daily that your summer house journey started not too long ago. In fact, you binged the entire series leading up to the season 5 premiere. So what was your approach? Like, because I know the common thing is to jump in at season 3 because of the cast shakeup. What was your approach?
Yeah, that's what I did initially. So I started with seasons 3 and 4 because, as you mentioned, I had heard that the show wasn't good. Seasons 1 and 2, there was a cast shakeup, and the show, quote unquote, really started in season 3. So that's where I began. And then, I was immediately hooked. I was immediately engaged. And by the time it was over, I wanted more. I felt that there was kind of a blank space in my life where Summer House used to be. So being the completist that I am, I went back and then watched seasons 1 and 2. And I have to say, like, I'm glad that I did. I actually thought it was better than people give it credit for. And it also did help me to contextualize, some of the star players, like, particularly Kyle, actually, and just seeing the start of his relationship with Amanda. Also Carl, like, really seeing some of the early Carl cruelty. It helped me. It did help me to have a better understanding of what I was watching.
And so far, what do you think of season 5?
Oh my God, it's so good. It's so good. Yeah, no, I mean, I do think, like, this last episode, I was watching it and I was like, this is Emmy worthy. Like, I really felt like this. I mean, it starts off with the pathos of Carl's brother's passing and, truly touching, truly moving. He's in a truly vulnerable state. And you also see, like, I think the deep love between, for example, him and Lindsay, him and Danielle, him and Kyle. And then it's just this effortless kind of navigation between this very sort of real, earnest, sincere drama and then just the more ridiculous relationship drama and, just kind of everything, and then, of course, just the total absurdity of, the ongoing, I mean, much to my chagrin, the ongoing Luke, Hannah sort of debacle of a quote unquote relationship where they're like sitting there in the bushes, like blowing smoke up each other's asses. But it had it all. And I really did, when I was watching it, I was like, this is truly Emmy-worthy television.
Best Supporting Actress, the nominee has to go to Lindsay Hubbard.
Mm-hmm.
And Best Supporting Actor, I'm sorry, I know that your heart really is for Kyle, but I'm giving the nomination to Carl. Carl Radke is my one true love. And I know you have said to me that you care. During Jamie's binge of the show, I'll just like get sporadic texts. And one of those sporadic texts was, I care deeply about Kyle's happiness. And I want to tell you, I care deeply about Carl's happiness.
Let me ask you a question. Now, have you seen seasons 1 and 2 out of curiosity?
Bits and pieces.
Oh, right. That's right. Right. I don't not care about Carl. I'm curious, what is it about Carl that speaks to you so deeply?
I have felt that he has always shown vulnerability, like in talking about how his parents' divorce deeply affected him and how that is the root, in his eyes, he sees that as the root of his problems with women and relationships in general and inability to trust.
Right. And I never fully believed that. But
why?
I just think it goes much deeper. I think it goes much, because the divorce was fairly recent in his adult life. Right. So for me, it's just, I mean, just with anyone, it doesn't really make much sense. If you're an adult, by that point, certain, patterns and behaviors and ways of thinking and approaching a life are formed. So I understand it was very disturbing and difficult for him that his parents were divorcing, but for me, kind of looking at it, it's like I don't see that as a reasonable explanation for just the level of, one, cruelty that I've seen in him, deception that I've seen in him, the level of manipulation towards women. That's kind of why I asked you if you'd watch the first 2 seasons, because you really see the way he fucks with women and the pleasure that he takes in it in the first 2 seasons. I mean, do we want to start going into deeper stuff?
Yeah.
I mean, And again, I really want to stress, I like Carl. Like, I like Carl. I don't dislike him. So everything, this isn't like a me taking down Carl conversation. But, I feel like I've always been really struck / concerned by the way he puts his mother on a pedestal, particularly that he demonizes his father, but then deifies his mother, which to me, that's always kind of a sign that like when one parent's all good and one parent's all bad, to me, that's usually a sign something's sort of off here. And like, for example, Jax does the same thing, but in reverse. It's like his father was a saint, his mother is the devil. It's like kind of it's almost like a child's like way of thinking. You're good, you're bad, you're evil, you're good. And I think for me, it's like, I've dropped into Carl kind of in relationship to his mom because I get curious about it. And I do sort of hear this voice that kind of says something like, get it together. Like, get it together. And when I feel that, it's kind of like this thread, because he's talked about, like, the men in my family were jerks, and I felt like essentially that he had to sort of side with his mother, and take care of her. And I just get, again, speaking to the unconscious, I just kind of get this suspicion that there's a place inside Carl where it almost felt like he felt he had to take her side, and that there was a way in which taking her side sort of put him at odds with the men, and that there was a kind of like a choice he had to make there. I think the other thing that's really interesting is that he once said, I forget which season this was, but it jumped out at me like a red neon sign. He was talking about his relationship with his mom. Again, he always talks about it in these gushing terms. I love my mom. And he said something that was like, I mean, if you don't love your mom, like basically saying there's something wrong with people who don't like totally love their mothers and aren't close with their mothers. And I'm just like, look, Carl, if you have a close relationship with your mother, great. If you have a great mother, great. But guess what? There are a lot of shitty mothers out there, and there are a lot of people who have contentious relationships with their mothers. So when I heard him passing such deep judgment on the very notion of someone not being close to their mother or kind of enamored with their mother in the way that he is, that to me was a huge sign of something inside you thinks there's something wrong with you if you're not sort of fully all in with mom. And I do just get this sense that there's a place where it feels like he just felt obligated sort of to be with her. And that maybe, and again, I'm speaking, we don't see a lot of the family dynamic, so this is just me kind of intuitively playing things by ear, but I just kind of wonder if there's a way in which mom was kind of positioned as the hapless sort of victim or the damsel in distress or, the victim of the men in the family. And then Carl kind of felt like he had to be by her side and take care of her. And in doing so, got alienated from the men. And if there's an unconscious place in him that is so angry about it and angry at her and never letting himself acknowledge that he has anger towards her because he feels like that is not allowed. And then wondering, is that part of why he's so vicious at times towards the women in his life? Because that's another interesting, that's an interesting dichotomy. The way he treats women in those early seasons versus how he views his mom, that's a split right there. And again, that's why I'm saying it's interesting to me, like, dad's bad, mom's good. It all just feels a little suspect.
When you were talking about people who have poor relationships with their mothers, my mind is going directly to Lindsay, whose mother abandoned her as a kid because she, quote, couldn't handle it. And that's why she was raised by Aunt Rhonda. And that's why it's always Aunt Rhonda. What do you make of that? And yet these two are best friends. I see a real spiritual connection between the two of them.
Yeah, I mean, in Lindsay's case, she was abandoned by her mother, right? I mean, I think that Carl feels abandoned very much by his father, right? I mean, he's obviously close with his mom, feels abandoned by his father. Lindsay obviously has huge abandonment. Do we ever find out about Lindsay's relationship to her father? She never really talks about that, does she?
No, unless there was something in those beginning seasons that you saw that I didn't see, then I don't know.
No. I mean, Lindsay and Carl, I mean, they feel similar to me energetically in the sense that I think they both have really big hearts. I think they both have a desire to love and to be loved. And I think that they're both just Well, I mean, Carl's on a different journey now, so it's we'll see where he goes. But historically, typically, they're both, really lost, and I think both very scared. I mean, that's actually, so you want to know what I think sort of binds them together? Both of them just feel so scared to me. I always get the sense with Carl, and this is why I say I think it goes way back before the divorce. To me, he feels like a 5-year-old who is like in just a chaotic household and doesn't know what's going on and just feels like there's no help or support and he doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. And that's also kind of why it's like, and then from there, if he's got this impression of like, oh shit, I got to help take care of mom, that's going to be even more of like a stressor. And I always just feel like Carl to me feels like, this 5-year-old sort of lost in this chaos, but he's smart and he's charming. And he almost, he a lot of times he feels to me like someone who sort of has studied how to be charming. Like he knows how to be charming. It's almost like lines he's learned. So he's really good at like playing a part socially, but it's never felt like 100% authentic to me because I always just sense this like kind of paralysis in him of like, I am so deeply scared out of my mind, but I just, I don't know what to do with this. And there's no help for this. Whereas with Lindsay, the fear feels a little bit different. It does feel particularly around abandonment. It feels kind of like if I slow down enough to like really be in real relationship with people, especially guys, and to really take them in and to not have it be this chaotic sort of like, I'm right, no, you're right, like, what it always is. I feel like then she opens herself up to truly be rejected and abandoned again. And I think she is so terrified of that. So I think both of them have a really deep fear.
Is there any world in which the relationship could work between the two of them? Like, what did you think when the two of them hooked up in season 4? What did you think in watching that?
I liked it. I was into it. Like I wasn't into it in the sense that like, I feel like Lindsay was, as the women always are with Carl, was very clear. Like, look, I'm looking for something serious. And then he clearly wasn't down for that. So from that perspective, I was like, Lindsay, get it together, walk the fuck away. But I think as far as their chemistry, no, I was totally into it. They were awesome. No, I love them both. I mean, and this is why Summer House is so great. It's like the quality of people on this show is so much better than the typical Bravo show because I think they're fundamentally decent human beings. I love they have big hearts. They love each other. They're sex positive. They're wild. They're free. They're youthful. Like I was totally into it.
Well, the difference between them and other casts where they're younger people is that you're genuinely rooting for these people to succeed, unlike a Southern Charm.
Yeah, it's true. And I think part of I don't watch Southern Charm, but like my reference point obviously is Vanderpump Rules. And it's like, yeah, I mean, these are people who have actual jobs. It's like their life isn't just the show. And again, there's a way in which like they're there for each other in a real way that doesn't just feel it's codependent. Like I feel like the Vanderpump Rules crew, it's like you're either in or you're out, and we all kind of want to stay at the same level. And if anyone were to kind of like leave or kind of do something else with their life, it's almost like all of them like are so scared because the whole house of cards collapses because they all just sort of want to stay in this just strange bind that they're in with like the reality TV fame, and it's just a clusterfuck. Whereas with Summer House, it just really feels like they're genuinely supportive of one another and they want the best for each other. And so I think we want the best for them.
What do you feel when you look at Carl's relationship to sobriety?
I mean, it feels good. That'd be interesting. I've never like specifically dropped into it, but we're not, we know he's sober. We're not like getting the details of his journey. Carl's actually very much been on the sidelines so far this season. So, I'm curious to see where this all goes. Like, we're not privy to his therapy. We're not really privy to his sober journey. It feels like he's on a real journey. We'll see, but it feels that way to me.
You've said it feels like these people are aging out of the Summer House. Like they're maturing.
Yeah, I wonder about that. Like how many more summers can Kyle? Like, is Amanda going to be pregnant and they're coming back to Summer House?
Probably.
I mean, we'll see. I don't know. Do you have thoughts on that?
I think this show is Kyle's show. he didn't create it, but he really had a strong hand in shaping it with the initial producer. So this is his baby. I think he loves this equally as much as he loves Loverboy.
Yeah, he's certainly in his element. I mean, I don't know where the show goes from here, because the other thing, too, that I'm aware of is, the show got new life when they shook up the cast. And so, I mean, we don't know how season 5 is going to play out, but I'm just like, what's happening next season? Are Hannah and Luke going to be in the house together again? Like, it just feels like this is the type of show probably where things need to be shaken up. But at the same time, I'm very connected to Lindsay, Carl, and Kyle, and I don't want them leaving my TV screen. So I don't know where we go from here. It's like the part of me that does want the best for them. Yeah, I want Carl to continue to heal. I want Lindsay to find her man and to get married. And I want Kyle and Amanda to be happy. But truthfully, yeah, does that lend itself to a lot more seasons of Summer House? It's hard to see how that happens.
Before we get into Hannah, I really want to dissect Lindsay sabotaging every relationship she has ever had. And this Steven Stravy, I actually kind of liked him, but I don't understand how they lasted this long. They admitted that they couldn't live together during quarantine. So then they stopped living together, and then they just started filming Summer House.
Well, I find it so interesting that Lindsay is so wildly chaotic in her emotions, and then she brings in these guys who are conversely so shut down in their emotions. So, because Everett, I mean, you experienced Everett. I mean, Everett literally, he seemed to me like a ringer. He seemed like an actor playing a part, because he was just so shut down and so self-conscious and stilted and self-aware, and he sort of spoke like this, and he didn't want to reveal any of his feelings. It was like a caricature of like an emotionally repressed guy. And so, and even with Steven, I mean, he's less so like that, but even the other housemates are commenting. It's like, yeah, this guy's obsessed with work. It's midnight. He's retreating back into the bedroom. So, with Steven, it's like, I do get the sense there's something in him that feels kind of alienated from his own feelings and from his own emotional life. And so when someone like him or Everett starts dating someone like Lindsay, well, from an unconscious perspective, it's perfect for him, because she creates the perfect reason and opportunity for him to withdraw and to retreat inside of himself, because, I'm dating this crazy woman who comes at me all the time. And so I think, and then for Lindsay, like I said, I actually think deep down she's terrified of the idea of like being with a guy who actually will meet her, so that they can actually relax into something. Because if they actually relax into something, that's where she can truly be hurt. So I think there's a way that they really, on an unconscious level, they work for each other, because neither one has to really risk whatever it is they don't really want to risk. And having said that, like you, I like him. And it does feel like there is actually a chemistry between them, and that they could maybe work if both of them were willing to do their own individual work. But it seems like right now they're both still kind of stuck in which was what would happen with her and Everett too. It's like her and Everett, like they would not hear each other. Like it was just, I mean, it's like what's going on in this country. It's just like, you have to listen to me, but no, you have to listen to me, but you have to listen to me. And it's like, right. Guys, at some point, one of you is going to have to put it down and fucking listen to the other person without getting defensive. And, they just never learned how to do that. And Lindsay goes from 0 to 60 in like that, and I think that's where she really sabotages herself, because I do think she actually... Lindsay's not dumb, like there are seeds of wisdom in what she's picking up on. And there are things that she's saying that have legitimacy, but because she's so unwilling to like hang out in a more kind of gentle, relaxed space with it, where it's like, hey, Jess, guess what? Like, this is kind of what I'm feeling. When you said this thing, this is what it brought up in me. Can we talk about this? And I want to hear what you have to say. She won't tolerate that. Again, my feeling is like, if she were to actually do that, then she has to deal with the terror of like, oh shit, what if I open myself up and then he leaves? And like that for Lindsay feels like it'd be way more devastating than the drama she currently creates, where in a way she's sort of orchestrating it so they go. She's in control right now.
100%. 100%. I mean, there was no way that he was going to win this. I mean, what she wanted, the only thing she wanted was a proposal out of him, which would have been disastrous. They would have broken up within 2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I heard, like the thing that I heard her saying that I was like, okay, I see, like, I get that this could be a legitimate point, was like, she was basically saying, like, when this started, you were whining me, you were dining me, there was kind of like a tone and a tenor to our relationship, and it feels like we got into a relationship and now, like, that's all gone. And it felt like that was her deeper issue. And I even kind of understood, like, okay, if I'm making it really clear and known that I want something over the top for my birthday, and then, I mean, what he did was sweet. I also kind of got her point about, like, okay, it's like fish and chips, like takeout, like on a fold out table. I mean, we were in a pandemic. I don't know. I'm saying, like, I sort of understood where she was coming from, but then it's just, yeah, she goes to this place where it's like, she won't create room for the other person to, like, speak, to articulate anything, to bring a different viewpoint to the table. She won't create space for the fact that maybe she's getting hit in a place that's sort of irrational. Like, she just goes in for the kill. And that's why I'm saying she needs to learn. I mean, she needs to take a cue in a way from Everett or from Steven and learn to just modulate the emotions a little bit. Not so that she disowns what's coming up for her, but that she can just navigate it in sort of a less reactive way that's not coming from this voice that says, you got to do it right, and you got to know everything about me, and I've got abandonment issues, and you got to deal. It's just like, oh my God, woman, like, give him some of what you want, which is, you want space to be heard and to seen, so see him and hear him.
It's very interesting how she keeps bringing up her age. She's only 34.
Oh my God, Jess, you don't realize, like, I have clients who, like, are in their late 20s or early 30s, you know, who are, like, talking about their age. But I think, you know, especially with women, you know, the biological clock is a factor. But this is I mean, I can't tell you how many women I meet with in sessions who are, you know, it's a huge source of stress and anxiety for them. And it's difficult because, of course, that very sort of energetic pattern of I'm stressed about this, I'm stressed about this, I'm stressed about this, that doesn't create space or room. You know, and you see that with Lindsay, right? It's like she's going in for the kill and she's driving these men away. And then I feel like the real task, even though it might feel counterintuitive, is like, okay, great. Like, this is the age you're at. Now, can you sort of, like, put the anxiety down and understand, like, can you surrender to something that's slower and gentler? Because you're not going to manifest something, like, stressed out about it all the time. Or if you do, it's still going to have that quality of stress and anxiety, because what you create in the current moment is just what you're going to keep creating.
You once said to me, oh, it was when you were binging Bethany Ever After. You said, I wonder, like, what kind of man really truly would be right for Bethany. And it's kind of like, what man really would be right for Lindsay?
Oh, and by the way, did I tell you that I feel like I got an answer to that?
No. What? Wait, no. Yeah, wait. You said that you felt that Dennis Shields was the right guy for her.
Like, it suddenly realized, I was like, oh, Dennis. Like a healthier version of Dennis is suddenly what came to me. Like, I feel like that kind of, like, yeah, like a dude, you know, like a sort of like a masculine, sort of burly guy who's got his own thing going on. And yeah, that felt good to me. That's an interesting question. I mean, the thing is, I think she finds potential matches. I mean, like we talked about, like, I think someone like a Carl could work. I think someone like a Steven could work. I mean, I think these guys, I don't think she's far off the field, you know, but I just think that she, you know, she's not really open to opening to these guys because she's so scared of being hurt.
She deserves an Emmy nomination.
I love her. I mean, you and I have chatted about this. I just think I love her form of insanity. Like, I just think she's wild, she's chaotic, but she is. I mean, the thing is, she's got a big heart and she means well. And I really did think, like, the fact that Carl kind of immediately went to her when he got the news and the way that they just hugged immediately, it really kind of said something about their relationship and I think who they are to each other.
I really want them to be together. I do. I ship them. What does Kyle say? He goes, ship it and send it.
Okay, can you tell me, what does send it mean?
Ship it is like, you know, like when you're shipping like a fictitious couple, like, you know, like a ship, like a relationship, like in fanfic. It comes from the fanfic world.
That I know, but send it.
I think it just means like get it done.
because they say things like, we're going to send it. Or like when they had Kyle's birthday dinner, it was at the Send It Cafe. Like, I don't know what send it means. It drives me.
I interpret it as like, make it happen. I mean, you love randomly DMing Bravo celebrities. Fucking DM him. Ask him.
I already did DM him. But it was a frivolous DM because it was in his stories. He was like, we're going to go live, but we'll only go live with you if you have like a Loverboy drink or something. And I just DM'd him being like, it's not available in California because it's not. I checked.
Did he read that DM?
I don't know. I didn't go back to check if he read it.
Yes. All right. What was your reaction last week when Hannah Berner announces she is engaged? And I want to go deep on the timeline of her relationship with this Desmond Bishop, Des Bishop, the comedian, and this situationship with Luke, because there's some funny business happening.
I mean, do you really want the first thought that popped in my head?
Mm-hmm.
It's not gonna last.
Yeah, of course not.
Yeah, I mean that was just my. It just really kind of like it just popped in really clearly. It was like, this isn't gonna last. Like, so I don't know. I mean, beyond that, as you know, I consider Hannah to be the true villain of Summer House, and I want to own I'm personally very triggered by her, and so I've spent a lot of time reflecting what she's bringing up in me. But it's very difficult for me to take anything that Hannah does or says seriously. So much like her relationship I just don't care. I don't care about her wedding. I find myself rolling my eyes at Hannah's relationship journey.
What does she bring up in you specifically?
Oh God. I have major issues with people like when I feel like there's a demand from them that I have to deal with them. Like I feel like Hannah wants to be all places all the time, so it's like, I just, even like last season, it's like, of course, everyone in the house heard her she didn't have sex with Luke. I guess he went down on her. Of course, everyone in the house had to hear her like moans of ecstasy. Of course, Hannah's talking about going to the bathroom with the door open. Like, of course, she's leaving the trash around the house when she's not around. Like, I just get this energy from Hannah. It's like the words I hear is like, you're gonna deal with me whether you like it or not. That kind of thing, I just personally find it invasive, and maybe part of this is just because I'm energetically sensitive. It's just like that level of kind of what I would call passive aggression. It really triggers something in me. And I think part of this is sort of the empathic nature of it all, because I do think there's something really aggressive about it passively. And I think I start to feel that. And like, there's a voice in me as I say this. It's like, get the fuck away from me. Like, you know what I mean? Like, no. That's what I want to say to Hannah. It's like boundaries. No. Like even in the last episode, it's like the way that she was sort of passive aggressively joking with Sierra as a way to kind of like stick it to Amanda. And she's doing it by talking about like being in the bathroom and going to the bathroom. And granted, I'm a little bit of a prude with that stuff. But with Hannah, it just feels like constant. It's like, pick my nose. I'm leaving the trash around. I'm talking about the hair on my ass. Like, it's just, it feels so, it just feels really aggressive. And that's just an energy for me that's difficult to handle.
So I think it's because she finds that sort of humor funny and she is desperate to be seen as funny.
I mean, maybe that's part of it, and I guess it's a more generous way of looking at it. I mean, to me, I really experience it as like, I'm going to be everywhere at all times. Like, you have to deal with me. It's like Fatal Attraction. Glenn Close says, I won't be ignored, the famous line. Like, that's what I hear off for I will not be ignored. So yeah, that's just kind of what it feels like to me. And then I think also, if you're asking me what personally gets triggered, I think I think because I have kind of a relationship to perfectionism and really sort of like, I have like what one might say are kind of like too high standards, I think a lot of times for myself and this is completely on me. When I see someone like Hannah, who I kind of experience as someone who I think she'll just do whatever the F. I think Hannah just kind of says, yeah, I do a podcast. Yeah, I do this. Yeah, I do that. Like, did you ever end up seeing that video she made? Remember last season she made that video for Luke's Instagram of him in the...
Yes, I did watch that, of course.
And it was terrible. It was terrible. It was badly edited. It was just terrible. But like when you watch them make it, you could see Hannah was just like, oh, this is great. And we're doing it. And she just reminds me of this like 5-year-old who just like throws shit at the wall. And it's like, yeah, I made that. It's great. And it's like, in a way, I say that. I'm like, you know what? That actually, in a way, in some ways, is like, I think a good quality for someone to have in the sense of like, she says yes to what she wants to create. And look, it's working for her right now. Like, she's created a lot of success with it. But if you're asking, you asked me what personally gets triggered in me, I think for someone like me, who is perhaps historically been more cautious when I'm around that energy, it just pisses me off.
Got it. Now, here's the timeline situation, why I think there's something funny happening. She said to People magazine in October that she's been with this boyfriend, Des Bishop, he's a fellow comedian, since July. They started filming this season of Summer House into August. Like, it was past the date of August 1st because Kyle's birthday and Lindsay's birthday are like into August. I don't think cameras were up in July at all, period. So she had a boyfriend this entire time.
Well, were they officially together or were they just starting to see each other? Because we saw Hannah all last summer. The whole time she was doing whatever you want to call that with Luke, she had some guy on the side. She's someone who likes to play the field. Remember, I told you last time when we talked about the real world, I always tend to believe everything. So I'm kind of gullible when it comes to real. And I also feel like, is she that good of an actress? I can't imagine Luke's that good an actor.
He was in The Flight Attendant.
Was he good?
He gets paid to act.
Was he good in The Flight Attendant?
He was like Luke. He played Luke.
Did he show the level of like passion and emotion that he showed when he was wearing that hat down by the pool saying like, you're not in reality, Hannah?
He had a better performance on Summer House. Fine.
I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. That was sort of where my mind went. It's like that they weren't sort of officially... Because my other thing, too, is like if it were all an act, that's kind of a really mindless flub. Why would she reveal that she was dating this guy, during filming if that whole thing was actually staged?
I'm skeptical of her in general.
Well, I think you should be. I think that she, I just don't, like I said, I roll my eyes because I and this is something I've seen since season 4, and it's why I said Hannah is the true villain of Summer House since last season. It's like, I think this is a woman who just is so impulsive with her feelings and her emotions, and she just runs with them in any given moment. I really don't think she's connected to her own emotional reality. And it's like she kind of whips herself up into frenzy, but then she also wants to whip the whole house up into a frenzy. And she always wants to enlist support for whatever's going on with her, but it changes moment to moment. And so I think you should be skeptical of her. I don't think that she's like emotionally regulated. And I don't mean that in a mean way. Like I say this with compassion. Like I think that I don't think she knows how to tolerate her own emotions. And she truly, like I said, she just runs with them in the moment without thinking.
Why is she so threatened by Kyle and Amanda?
Oh my, I have so many thoughts about Kyle and Hannah. I think it's such a complex web with so many different threads to it.
Tell me.
Oh God, I'm a little overwhelmed because there's so much there. I think I think there's several things. I think as far as Kyle and Amanda goes, so I'll offer you a little tidbit that I've picked up along the way. I've heard through the grapevine that apparently like there was more cheating on Kyle's side of things than was actually shown like on the show. And so I guess I do feel part of it. Like when I kind of drop into Hannah to Amanda, like I do hear this voice. It's kind of like, get it together. Like I sort of see her wanting to shake Amanda by the shoulders. And we know that Hannah, per her own description, has had kind of a history with being treated badly in relationships. And we know there's also been like a lot of, that's a whole other thing we could get into, is like the dynamic with her father. I think that she kind of especially because the way that Amanda I like Amanda, But there's definitely a way that she, you know, her gaze is kind of downcast. And when she gets upset, she cries and she kind of sort of defaults into a little girl. And I do think there's a place in Hannah where kind of Amanda reminds her of like the part of herself that would sort of let her be a little girl to guys and to be treated badly by guys. And I think in the place, where Hannah kind of judges herself or is perhaps angry about those choices, it's like she just wants to shake it out of Amanda. And then I think part of that, as far as going over to Kyle, and this is where I think it gets so complex, is I do think she kind of associates him as like the father of the house. And I think, you know, and it was interesting because I think it was just last episode, she said something like, "You're not the father of the house." And when she said that, I was like, ding, ding, ding. Because like I said, I've always kind of sensed that she maybe associates him with that kind of like, so on the one hand, Kyle is kind of like the bad dad, you know, because he's sort of the shitty dad who like disappointed Amanda. And I think that sort of triggers Hannah stuff around her father. But what I also get off Hannah is the part of her that's kind of like, oh God, sorry, I'm having like an empathic moment. I just feel how deeply this kind of would hit Hannah in her heart. Like, I think there's a part of her that like longs, you know, for that kind of stable dad energy. And I'm not saying that she has a crush on Kyle or wants to be with Kyle. Like, it's not as simple as that. But I do feel a part of her that's kind of like drawn to his energy and like hates herself for it and like doesn't want to be drawn to his energy.
Jamie, have you looked at a picture of Des Bishop, the fiance?
Oh, but I know where you're going because people were saying he looks like Kyle, right?
He looks exactly like Kyle 15 years from now.
Yeah.
Twins.
When I've dropped into Hannah to Kyle, I really do feel this like, it's this voice that says, I don't want to know it. I don't want to see it. I feel this kind of pull towards him and she doesn't want to admit it. So I think it's complicated for her. Were you going to say something? Because then we can go over to Kyle's side of the street, which is a whole other.
I think that's a fucking hot take.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm actually like, it really does touch me. Like, I'm feeling a lot more compassion for Hannah now than I usually do. I feel the inner conflict. And because the thing is, what I was about to say was just like, I think from Kyle's end, I think he wants nothing to do with Hannah. And I think there's several parts to that, but I think in that place where I think Hannah can have that energy of, look at me, deal with me, here I am. And especially if there's a way she's casting, even again, unconsciously, we're talking about energy now, right? She's casting Kyle in kind of this father role where she sort of wants something. Now you got to remember Kyle, and this is where the first two seasons really came in handy for me to kind of understand him better. This is a guy with a huge Peter Pan complex. You know, his whole thing, first few seasons, was like, he had a whole party dedicated to never growing up. And I was like, oh, this is not playful. I was like, I could feel it. I was like, you're so angry under this. Like, there's so, like, this place where you are so attached to, like, binge drinking and blacking out. And I got to have my summer, and summer's got to be fun. And we're never growing up. To me, when I feel into that for Kyle, it is just like, no. It's like, I will not grow up, and you can't make me. It makes me feel like there's just some place in his life where he did not get to say no. And he's furious. And I just feel this rage under it. So when there's someone like Hannah kind of almost putting him in this role as the adult, and on top of that, kind of having some sort of unspoken demand on him, it's like when I drop into Kyle to Hannah, it's just like pushing her aside. It's like, I don't want to know it. I don't want to see it. So for Hannah, though, my belief, as I already said, is that she's sort of sitting there being like, people have to see me and deal with me. So here you got this guy who I've got this ambivalent like energy towards as the dad. And on top of it, and I've got these feelings of sort of a, you know, of like what I would call like a kind of attraction towards him. Again, I'm not saying she like wants to fuck him or anything, but attraction towards him. And that I'm kind of already ashamed of. And then he's sort of energetically pushing me away. As Hannah, I'm just like, I'm furious. And so then it's like part of the fury is like, I'm going to keep you're going to have to deal with me. I'm going to keep pointing out what you did. I'm going to keep pointing out what you did. So, I mean, again, it's like there's so much more I could say. It feels so like layers on top of layers on top of layers. I don't know. Did you have anything you wanted to say?
I find it fascinating what you're bringing up.
I mean, I think the last piece of it from Kyle's point of view, too, is like, I think in the place where I do feel like there's a disowned anger in Kyle, and I think it used to go into like the Peter Pan complex. And then I think Amanda quite powerfully and boldly, like she did a great job with this. I mean, if she were one of my clients, I'd be so proud of her. She got to a point, whatever season that was, where she was like, look, Kyle, I can't change you. You can do whatever you want to do. Just know I'm out. And Kyle heard her and he changed, which, by the way, I think is a huge part of why he's now finding the business success that he didn't find before. I think before he was just too invested in being a little boy. And I think Amanda kind of forced him to man up. And I think energetically, that's why his life is flowing more now. But it is interesting to me because it's like you would see once they sort of got on a good page, if Amanda ever wanted to be in her process around like, I'm still recovering from like you cheating and I'm still recovering from you betraying my trust, you could see it was hard for Kyle to tolerate that. Like he just, he wanted to move on. I think because on some level, that behavior was connected to this disowned anger that he doesn't want to know for himself. And so I think when Hannah now keeps bringing that stuff up, like I think, yes, it's annoying, like you're bringing up my bad behavior, but I also feel like it's a trigger for this part of himself that he wants to keep underground. And so then Hannah becomes the receptacle for it. It's like now instead of the rage being funneled into like being the dude who blacks out and won't commit to women, now it feels like it goes towards Hannah. Because you could see like last episode, he had to stop himself from getting involved. And I love Kyle, as you know. But, I was looking at that. I was like, wow, Kyle, you are charged and heated around Hannah. And I think, yeah, there's something there. It's just like his anger. He wants to squash her out so bad because he doesn't want to feel what she's bringing up in him.
What was your reaction to the announcement of Winter House?
Honestly, I'm a little worried about too much of a good thing. I kind of like Summer House being in the summer. And I mean, I'm more into it now that I know Lindsay's on it. I wasn't aware she was on it at first. So I saw like Kyle and Amanda and Sierra, who I like, but I'm just not attached to her yet. And then like Luke, which, God, do I really need another season of Luke on anything? So, but seeing that Lindsay's on it, I'm more excited. But I also got to say, I've never watched Southern Charm, but I did see the Southern Charm house guests visit the Summer House, and I was not impressed. So I'm not.
They got to get the Toms in there.
I know it'd be perfect with the Toms, and bring Katie and Ariana. Like I'm ready. I'm ready for more Schwartz drama, like in a different setting. Like I'm here for it.
Summer House has been the thing as sort of like the antidote to the poor performance of Vanderpump Rules. Can you sort of compare the feeling of watching Vanderpump Rules in its prime to watching Summer House in its prime, just as a viewer?
I mean, it's like, for me, it's the difference between the midnight sky and the blazing sun. It's just kind of like Vanderpump Rules is just the dark abyss of like LA and LA desperation and desire for fame and like dashed dreams and disappointments. And I love it for that. Like, and it's ruled by Lisa Vanderpump, who's just like the mistress of cruelty and control and manipulation, and then you move over and it's this insular world, like I said, is codependent, where they're dependent on the show and each other and Sir and Lisa for their very survival. There's no room to breathe. Whereas then you go over to Summer House and it's kind of like, these independent, successful individuals who don't need the show to survive, who are struggling enough emotionally to make for great television, but as we said, are also like decent, adjusted human beings who have careers, you know what I mean? And who really sort of care and support about each other. So it just, one to me feels really light and airy and like there's a ton of space. And the other one just feels like I'm getting sucked into like a dark, sinister web of Lisa Vanderpump's making.
But that felt amazing too.
It's a different kind. It's like watching it, to me. I mean, this is for the film buffs out there. It's the difference between watching like a Billy Wilder romantic comedy and like an old film noir.
Did you happen to watch NYC Prep It was a 1-season wonder on Bravo.
No, my friends did. I didn't.
Here's what's funny. So I've been spending the weekend watching the whole thing. It's like 8 or 9 episodes because I'm doing like a rewatch. Like I did this with Princesses Long Island, where Emerson Collins from The People's Couch and I had him come on, and we basically like gave our rundown of all the characters. What are they up to now? Like our thoughts and feelings, like why was this canceled after just 1 season? So I'm doing this with Ryan Bailey for NYC Prep. I bring this up because it is so clear to me that NYC Prep, even though the people on it are so young, it sort of makes me uncomfortable how young they are. Like some of them are like 14, 15. This is the show that evokes the exact feeling, the darkness of Vanderpump Rules.
You know, my understanding of NYC Prep, obviously, these are prep school kids who are sort of growing up in a certain sort of affluent world. And I think part of what's cool about Summer House is that, you know, these are people who are making their own way. And, you know, and especially like, you know, I loved when we saw where Danielle came from. And, you know, Kyle's mentioned like he doesn't come from means. But then I paused for a moment because I was like, well, I guess the Vanderpump Rules kids, like it's not like any of them are trust fund kids, but you see the difference. You know, it's like one group is truly making their own way, and they're entrepreneurs, and you know they're living and affording lives in Manhattan, you know, and the other group is kind of like waiters at which, let's be clear, I'm not knocking. I myself come from a background of waiting tables, and actually I loved waiting tables, but you get what I'm saying. I mean, Jax Taylor is nowhere near as well adjusted as a Kyle Cooke.
Right. I'm telling you, Jamie, you need to watch NYC Prep. There is a lot for you to unpack.
It's difficult for me to watch shows that I know only have 1 season though, because it's like then you're making the investment and then the road just ends.
Listen, it'll live on. Like we can talk about it on the podcast. There can be something.
It's always I still miss Gallery Girls.
See, that I never watched. Ooh, maybe I'll watch Gallery Girls and we can do a thing on that. Maybe that'll be the next show because I'm going through the 1-season wonders.
Oh my God, Gallery Girls is so good.
Would I like it?
I think so. There's a character on there, Chantal, who is worth the price of admission for sure. I mean, I still think about Chantal to this day and like wonder what she's up to.
I am convinced that everyone's hair drives them nuts. Mine is curly and gets too dry in the winter, too oily in the summer, and I'm constantly having to buy new shampoo and conditioner to just battle the elements. The issue is that there's no one-size-fits-all shampoo or conditioner because we're all coming to the table with a unique body and hair chemistry. Well, I recently found a customized shampoo and conditioner solution called Prose, and it's kind of been saving my life. All you do is go on their website, prose.com, you fill out a quiz about your hair. For example, your hair type, how it feels, where it falls on the oily to dry spectrum, plus questions about your eating and exercise habits. And with Prose's algorithm, Prose finds a unique blend of ingredients to treat your exact concerns. I've been using the custom shampoo and conditioner, plus been experimenting with their hair oil and leave-in conditioner, and it's honestly made my hair more shiny and more full than it's been in months. All of their custom hair products are freshly made to order. And FYI, if you're not happy with the results, Prose will take back the products, no questions asked. So this is what you need to do. Just go to prose.com/hot takes. It's prose.com/hot takes to take your free in-depth hair quiz and get 15% off your first order. Again, go to prose.com/hot takes for the free in-depth hair quiz and get 15% off. All right, let's dive into The Real World Homecoming. Just on a basic level, how did you like it?
I thought it was amazing. I thought it was so powerful on so many different levels.
It so exceeded my expectations.
It was just truly touching. I mean, again, for me on the level of like having watched this as a teenager. So, you know, of course, I'm just thinking about like the passage of time for me, but then also just seeing them obviously 30 years later. I mean, it felt like the reality TV version of Boyhood or like a Richard Linklater movie, just like seeing these people. And also, I don't know if you did this, but I've been going back and watching the first season again just to kind of remind myself. So, you know, I'm like literally watching the episodes of them when they were like 19 and in their early 20s, and then watching this now they're in their 50s. And Just such a bittersweet, I think, testament to the passage of time and sort of these adults. And then also just the whole conversation around like what they really did start and just the role that reality TV has played in our consciousness. I thought that was really profound. And it also like it hit an especially kind of personal note for me because, my whole work has sort of gotten intertwined with this navigation of reality TV. And I don't know, I was just really thinking about that too. It's like reality TV, and I've always said this, there is a way that I find that it is a very kind of spiritual thing. And I can go into that if you want me to, but
I would love for you to. Yeah.
I think for me in the sense of like, there's a whole system of belief, right? That it's like, there are spiritual realms and like this is the earthly realm and like our spirits kind of come into these lifetimes in order to kind of like have this human experience and to learn lessons and to evolve and to grow. And so from that perspective, like this world, this earth as we know it is kind of one big stage, and literally like there are belief systems that on a spiritual realm, like we sort of cast ourselves in these roles and we sort of choose who our parents are going to be. And there's sort of like kind of a rough outline. And then we're sort of let loose into the experiment. And so for me, it's like you could say life is like one big reality show because essentially that's what's happening in reality TV. It's kind of like, okay, we're going to set the stage. We're going to kind of cast the ensemble. We kind of have a loose idea of like, they're going to go on a trip at some point. You know what I mean? But now it's like, go. And it's sort of, I guess for me, it's the idea of like the simulation, within the reality. And you could say that our lives are a simulation within a broader reality. And there are really people who like talk about that. And there's people who like claim to prove it, that we are just in one big simulation, like the Matrix. So I do sort of always look at reality TV as like, and then I just think it's so fascinating that like there's literally two versions of all these people. Like there's a Ramona Singer who's the actual human being. And then there's Ramona Singer, the TV character. But for Ramona, the TV character has significance and resonance for who she actually is, and she can learn from the TV character. So she's got her own personal relationship to the TV character, but then we have a relationship to Ramona, the TV character. So it's just, it is. It's like we were saying at the beginning. I guess in some ways it was a bit of we were already keyed into something, but it's like circles upon circles and spirals upon spirals. It's like there's something happening here that's it is very kind of spiritual, sort of like matrixy, whatever you want to call it.
As far as my expectations were exceeded, I did have two crushing disappointments in watching this. Number one, learning that they only filmed for 6 days and saying that, like, don't tell me that. Like, at least like keep the illusion alive that you filmed for a couple of months. Jesus. And number two, the fact that Eric wasn't there and he's only seen on screen because of COVID. Come on. Could they not push it off 2 weeks?
That was really disappointing. Really, really, really disappointing.
That like kind of it's driving me a little nuts.
I will say that I thought it was insanely touching when Heather, basically gave Kevin his due and just said like, you were right about everything. And I thought it was so powerful for her to really claim and own like, I didn't want to take you seriously. I didn't want to hear it. Especially, because like I said, I have been going back and watching those old episodes, and it is interesting. Like you go back and you're like, this is the conversation, and he was speaking to things that are now being spoken to, and you can see it. It's like the housemates, they don't know how to hold space for his anger. They just don't know how to do it. They don't know how to be curious about it. They don't know how to get out of their own way long enough to say, hey, like let's take this guy seriously and like really see what's here. And I don't know. I just to hear Heather say that and, for Kevin to have that moment, I just thought it was so profoundly moving and touching.
And for Kevin and Julie, who had that, one of the most, important, quote unquote fights, although I thought it was great how, I forget who said it on the show. Maybe it was Becky saying back then they had debates, not fights, which unfortunately is what reality turned into. It's all about fights, not debates. But for Julie now to have a 17-year-old daughter who is a civil rights ambassador in Birmingham, That's unbelievable. And for Kevin to see that and seeing his reaction to that after FaceTiming with her, that's what got me the most.
Well, didn't you feel, I really felt like you could feel how much Julie and Kevin like care about each other. Like it really felt to me, and I don't know what their story is now or to what degree they've kept in touch, but I just got this feeling like they both feel so bonded in terms of like kind of what they went through specifically around that. And it does seem like Julie is a lot more aware now than she, because I will say rewatching the first season, it's like you're just cringing listening to her, you know. But I really was struck by the level. It really to me felt like there was something an unspoken recognition between the two of them that again was really touching to me. And I was, you know, really touched by Kevin at the end too, basically saying like, I wish I could have accepted them for, you know, where they were in the moment. I mean, the whole thing was just so, it really was, it was profound and it was beautiful. And I found myself really moved by all of it.
Jonathan Murray was interviewed on, I believe it was rollingstone.com. And he said that Buna Murray had been talking to MTV for years about doing a reunion like this, but it obviously wasn't quite like the MTV audience. There's no home for something like this on MTV, and that it was only when MTV let them know that actually we're starting a streaming platform called Paramount Plus, which is where now like MTV is like being packaged into, that this now would be like a completely like appropriate home for a reunion. And that's what kicked it off. And he sees doing more of these. Like I know that I mentioned it on an episode last week that Amaya tweeted back in December that at least she was contacted about them doing a 2-week Hawaii reunion.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't going to say this because I was, you know, I don't want to betray confidences. Yeah, I know I've heard that they're, so I guess it's public information. They want to do more of these. Yeah.
Do you think a San Francisco reunion would work?
It's tough because, I mean, obviously Pedro's not there, which of course they could like, you know, maneuver around that. I mean, I would be so drawn to it because I love San Francisco. And on the one hand, there are fascinating people who I consider quote unquote like real people like Judd and Pam and Corey and even, you know, Rachel, who I would be really interested in catching up with them. I think the concern for me is that you then also have Puck. And depending on where he's at in life, and is it just all going to become about Puck again? And I don't know. There's just something distasteful to me about like, because Pedro has died, I don't know. Like I could just see it sort of going left in terms of like it becomes the Puck spectacle, and then like is there going to be kind of like manufactured drama, you know, that's sort of like Pedro's memory is brought into. It's like if it could be done sort of how New York is being done, where it really feels like in integrity, it feels raw, it feels real, because Puck really was, you know, it's so funny speaking about like remembering the memories. My brother always had disdain for my love of the real world and reality TV. And I remember us speaking about San Francisco when it was airing and him literally saying like, I hate this stuff because of like stuff like Puck. Like it feels like stunt casting. But again, this was so early. Like I feel like Puck was the first stunt cast member.
He was the original sort of stunt queen.
Right. I remember so much about all this. I remember because in the first episode of San Francisco, he gets thrown in jail. And I remember then reading like in the interview with him where he basically, or with someone where basically they were saying he thought like when he got thrown in jail, he was basically like, I'm on the real world and like basically you have to let me out and they're going to get me out. And then the real world was like, no, we're not letting you out. And like, this is real. And it just kind of goes to show though, like he was someone who was really kind of looking at this as like a TV show, you know, and a platform for him to sort of do his thing.
Which seasons do you think would work best for a quote unquote homecoming reunion?
Oh man, I'd love to. I think Miami would be awesome. You know, I think Hawaii just, you know, obviously that was such like a spectacle of a season. I think Seattle, that whole era, I think would be really good because it was still like really real back then. And then of course, like I have an affection for the ones I worked on. So I'd love to see Las Vegas back together. I'd love to see San Diego. I'd love to see Paris, honestly, because I loved working on Paris. I don't think anyone else cares about Paris. Honestly, I think that they all work. I think it's just a question of like some of them, obviously in the case of like Pedro, we're never getting him back. I think with others, it would be more, like would The Miz do something like this at this point, because he's got a successful wrestling career? Or even like I wonder if you could get, for example, it's been a while since he's been in the limelight, but could you get like a Kyle to come back to Chicago? Or let's talk about the real, like this is like, I feel like the golden egg in terms of people who've left it behind. Could they ever get Aaron? Oh, you didn't watch LA, right? You haven't seen Los Angeles.
You keep telling me I have to watch. Yeah, that is the one season I haven't watched.
It's like such a good season. But Aaron was like the surfer dude, but he was also like an economics major. And so he was like this sort of conservative guy. And I think more than anyone else in the entire real world universe, he is the one who left it behind. And like you will never see him or hear him have anything to. It's like he's like totally embarrassed by it. So I wonder if they could ever get him to like do.
Money is the thing that will get anybody to do anything.
Well, I think they'd have to pay him a lot because I think he's doing well. I think that's the point. I think he's a little embarrassed by his because there was also like a storyline on the show where they kind of they found, I guess, like an old pinup calendar that he had modeled for, and as a joke they kind of photocopied it and posted it around the house. And when he sees it, he flips out and he's just like, do you have any idea what this could do to my image and my career? And so he took himself very seriously. And I don't know, he made some sort of deal with the devil to do this for like one season, but no one has ever heard from that guy again. And I actually went and looked for him on Instagram, and it's a private account, and I requested, and he never gave me permission.
Just as a reminder for people, you work with clients, with individuals where you basically act as an intuitive and empath to help them unblock whatever it is that they are coming into the session with, that you can focus on, like relationships, money, alcohol, like whatever. Like, what are some of the key themes? You mentioned fertility, like pregnancy with women. Like, what are some of the key themes that keep recurring for you with clients?
Oh, there's obviously a lot about people, wanting to step into more fulfilling careers, unblocking creativity, relationships, how do I kind of get open to meet someone, and like you said, my kind of the work that I do is really like hearing and channeling what's in the unconscious landscape. So if you're someone who believes that we're kind of co-creating the reality of our lives, and there's something in you or in us that kind of blocks us from the things that we want, what I can kind of do is go in there and kind of start hearing and feeling the places in you that are saying no to some of the things you want and why, and then we can start navigating how you work with that so that you can kind of create different outcomes in your life. And cool.
And I know, like, initially when you started, doing this work on a more professional level, you were honing in specifically with screenwriters, right?
Well, way back. Well, because I used to work, I used to teach screenwriting. So, I had a whole background where I was the head story analyst for the Sundance Writers and Directors Labs. And so from that, I started a freelance script consultation business. I taught screenwriting at Wesleyan University for several years. So I was working with writers. And then at the same time, I went and got my therapeutic training. And then I started opening up more and more to like my intuitive resources. So it's all kind of one big clusterfuck. Like even when I was a script consultant, I was working intuitively. I was speaking to people's like deeper sort of core stuff and helping them channel it into their writing. But as it evolved, I started specializing in getting writers unblocked and helping them to kind of understand why they were writing, what they were writing. And then it sort of broadened out to like, well, I can just sort of help anyone get creatively unblocked. And then finally I was just like, let me just basically come out of the closet as like an intuitive and as an empath and just offer intuitive readings and, kind of stop hiding behind, whatever. Like I'm a therapist or I'm a script consultant. But, it all comes back to creativity because I think, I was just saying this to a client the other day. It's like, our whole lives are an act of creation. Like the second you wake up, you choose to do things a certain way. So we're always accessing our creative energy. And so I think that's kind of what this work is really about. It's like, who are you? Like, what's your energy like? You know, like, are you a Kyle, or, you know, are you a Danielle? And like, you know, do you say yes to those parts of yourself? And how do you really want to be living? Like, what's the life you want to be creating for yourself? And a lot of times people don't even know, you know, because they've gotten so conditioned to thinking they're one way. And so then it's like we have a session and it's like, actually, I kind of feel like you're actually this way, you know, and then a lot of times they're like, oh my God, like that actually, like that feels like a relief to me. That's true. Or I thought I couldn't do that, you know, and it's like, no, it's actually who you are. So go off and do it and be happy.
And I do want to say, every Tuesday night, this episode is coming out on a Tuesday. So literally, if you listen to this earlier in the day on Tuesday night, you go live at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific, and somebody joins you and asks you a question, and you read them, like you channel them. And it's fun to watch because, you know, who can't relate to like a question about relationship or money, or, you know, you always kind of like see yourself in the question. So
yeah, that's why I love doing it. You know, I really wanted to start doing a lot more group stuff because I think there is something that's so healing for people to be able to kind of witness each other's questions. And then, yeah, the information that comes through, it's not just for the individual, it's for everyone who's watching it. And that's also why, I mean, you know, I also, not daily, but almost daily, I'll answer quick hit questions in my stories where, you know, people submit written questions and I write responses. And those two people just, you know, the DMs I get are so amazing because it's just like people are really taking it in for themselves. And I love that. And I love, you know, I just love the notion of like the collective. And like you said, we're all kind of struggling with, you know, the same things. And then I think what's cool for me is that people get to see that they really aren't alone and that they really aren't the only ones struggling with the types of things that they're struggling with, which that's something I take for granted because I come from doing group work and I'm trained in group facilitation. So it's been in my consciousness for so long of like, oh yeah, we're all fucked up. We're all struggling. And I forget that, you know, for a lot of people who haven't had that kind of experience, they really are walking around with this idea like I'm the only one and there's something wrong with me. And it's like, oh my God, no, not at all. Come read these questions. And actually every question I've ever answered is archived on my profile. So go to my profile. You can click through all of them, see what people are asking about.
Tell everyone where to follow you online if they want to connect with you to book an individual session or just to follow you on Instagram. Where can everyone find you?
Yeah, definitely follow me on Instagram, Jamie Stein, JAMIESTEIN. And then, yeah, if you feel drawn to this work at all, check out my website, hollywoodreadings.com. And there's stuff written there, and you can email me. I kind of have windows where I sort of open up for scheduling more readings. I only do a certain amount every week because they go quite deep. So, but I'm going to open a window up pretty soon. So just, yeah, write me, let me know that you're interested, and I can send you the info. And also, I will just plug that I am going to be soon dropping my own podcast, Deep Dive with Jamie Stein, and it's going to get into all sorts of Housewives-related stuff, as well as people calling in with questions, too. I don't have an exact release date yet, but I'm right in the final stages of tweaking the first few episodes, so it'll be by the end of the month. So if you want more deep dives into all your favorite Bravo content, definitely follow me on Instagram because I'll announce it there.
All right, that's it, guys. You can follow me, Jess XNYC, follow the show account where I promote upcoming episodes at Hot Takes Deep Dives, and Jamie and I will see you guys very soon.